Good afternoon. Great things are happening in New York City. We're taking strides toward a greener, more prosperous, and just future. Jobs at a near record high. Our city is safer than it has been since the pandemic, and tourism is booming. We are supporting working families, connecting our young people with good paying jobs, making our city safer, and helping New Yorkers suffering from serious mental illness. Now, it is our responsibility to maintain New York City's forward momentum. Our fiscal year 2024 executive budget prioritizes our working people's agenda and keeps our city working for the benefit of all New Yorkers. It does so while addressing some of the storm clouds gathering on our horizon, including billions of dollars in new costs. We were able to balance this year's budget using better than expected revenues and by achieving savings and making government more efficient. Making government efficient is not an exercise for its own sake. Instead, doing so allows us to spend more resources on improving the lives of working people. We also balance the budget responsibly. Because we had set aside record levels of budget reserves, we were able to apply some to closing budget gaps and still have billions of dollars set aside for rainy days. This budget also preserves hundreds of millions of dollars in investments that we have made since I took office. That includes funding for affordable child care, a record 100,000 summer youth jobs, and money for schools that lost enrollment. Make no mistake, this $106.7 billion executive budget protects those investments, preserves essential services, and continues to improve the lives of everyday New Yorkers. Almost 60% of this budget, $62.5 billion in total, goes to education, healthcare, and social services. As mayor, I'm committed to protecting what matters most: the health, education, and safety and well-being of our people. But the challenges we face are real, and our continued progress is threatened by something beyond our control: the cost of the asylum seeker crisis. In the last year, we have provided care and shelter to more than 57,000 asylum seekers who arrived in our city seeking refuge. Many were bused in without advance notice from other states. This is an ongoing crisis. Yesterday alone, nearly 500 asylum seekers arrived in New York City looking for a place to sleep. That's 500 people, an entire hotel, an entire shelter. And right now, more than 35,000 asylum seekers remain living in shelters and humanitarian relief centers. We expect this population will more than double and hit over 70,000 by June 2024. We expect to spend $1.4 billion this fiscal year on the asylum seeker crisis and $2.9 billion in the next. That is $4.3 billion by July 2024, just 15 months from now. Based on our latest discussions, we are optimistic that the state budget would include as much as $1 billion in aid. In addition, we are projecting $600 million in assistance from the federal government out of the $800 million it has made available to localities nationwide. We are grateful to the New York congressional delegation for their efforts to secure aid. Elected officials like Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries are fighting hard for us. But even if our optimistic projections are met, state and federal aid will cover just under 40% of our costs, leaving New Yorkers to pay the rest. And unfortunately, the prospect for additional federal aid or congressional action on comprehensive immigration reforms are slim, given that far-right Republicans control the House. We crafted this budget with full awareness of asylum seeker costs, labor settlements, and other gap-widening needs. Earlier this year, we settled long-expired labor contracts with DC 37 and the Police Benevolent Association. These contracts set the pattern for wage increases across the city. Paying our workforce a fair wage is one of my priorities. It puts more money in the pockets of working families and helps us recruit and retain top talent. However, along with the funds we already set aside in the labor reserve, we had to add another $16 billion across the financial plan to fund the labor deals for the city's workforce. The outcome of state budget negotiations will also impact the city's finances. We know that our partners in Albany are working hard to protect the city from having to shoulder major cost shifts, and we thank them for their efforts. But we will still prepare for New York to bear some extra costs in the final budget that could open a budget gap we have to address at adoption. In addition to the fiscal challenges I have just described, the national economy and our tax revenue growth are both expected to slow. The national economy is cooling dramatically compared to the growth of the last few years, and the country's labor market growth is in decline. Here in New York City, we see mixed signals, though the local economy is strong overall. We're still adding jobs faster than the nation and state, and we keep hitting new milestones. We have regained nearly all of the jobs lost due to the pandemic. And private sector employment is now at more than 99% of pre-pandemic levels. We're just 11,000 new jobs away from a historic high. There's even more to celebrate. Tourists are back and booking more hotel rooms than we've seen in years. I see them on the subway. They're going to Broadway shows and eating at the world's best restaurants. Theaters are back to over 90% of their pre-pandemic audiences, and our hospitality sector has recovered nearly 90% of lost jobs. This is a city with swagger, great museum, nightlife, and shopping, and everyone wants to be a part of it. But even as our economy has recovered, some key drivers of city revenue are slowing down. This will create significant challenges in future budgets. Wall Street drives income growth in our city, and it is the source of revenue that funds a large part of our budget. We benefited from several years of record growth, but when Wall Street profits decline by 50%, we all feel the pain. Commercial office vacancies remain at a record high level, which impacts our property tax revenue, the city's single largest source of taxes. Just as we transformed the financial district into a vibrant live-work community 20 years ago, we must transform our city by converting older, vacant, and underused offices into housing. This will boost small businesses, protect good jobs, and create thriving neighborhoods. We're working hard to ensure that office conversion legislation is passed by the end of this session. Meanwhile, the housing market is seeing some softness. Home prices are expected to decline this year because of interest rate hikes. We expect to recover in the out years of the financial plan, but the lack of activity in the shorter term means fewer resources for the city. As a result of these trends and additional new costs, we must budget wisely. In crafting the executive budget, we face a substantial challenge, funding $10 billion in an added cost over 2 fiscal years without cutting core needs, laying off employees, or raising taxes. As I said earlier, we face $4.3 billion in asylum seekers costs over fiscal years 2023 and 2024. Raising wages for our workforce requires that we did $4 billion across this fiscal year and the next. We're also investing $1.8 billion to fund agencies' expense changes and provide our people with care, education, and the promise of an even better New York City. To fund these added costs and, at the same time, protect our priorities, we ask agencies to dig deep and find savings. As they have in the past, they found ways to save taxpayer dollars without layoffs, furloughs, or cutting services. We also applied better than expected tax revenues from business, personal income taxes, sales, and hotel taxes. And as is the city's custom, when the fiscal year comes to an end, we use reserves to help balance. These only impact reserve levels in fiscal year 2023 and not those that are baseline for fiscal year 2024. We had to make tough choices in this budget. We had to negotiate competing needs. We realized that not everyone will be happy, but that is okay, because that is how you get stuff done. This is important. That is how you look out for everyday New Yorkers. Our fiscal year 2024 budget is balanced at $106.7 billion. That is $4 billion more than it was in January. Growth is driven by the cost of labor deals that help working people and the cost of caring humanely for asylum seekers. Out-year gaps at $4.2 billion, $6 billion, and $7 billion over fiscal years 2025 through 2027. It is important to note that our city budget has continued to grow over time, and our individual agency budgets tend to grow as well, thanks to strong local economic activity that generated higher than anticipated growth in personal income, business, sales, and hotel taxes. We revised revenues upward by $2.1 billion in fiscal year 23 and $2.3 billion in fiscal year 2024. These revenues were crucial to staying balanced in this plan. Though we did a bit better than expected in this plan, we're closely watching slowing growth in the financial plan out years, since sluggish growth impacts revenues that support critical city needs. Savings was also a significant part of the executive budget plan. Just a few weeks ago, we set an ambitious program to eliminate the gap, or a term called PEG. The PEG target about $1.1 billion in each year starting in fiscal year 2024. We did not set a target for the current fiscal year, though we encourage agencies to generate savings. Every agency hit their PEG targets. However, after reviewing their PEG submissions, we saw that our libraries and the Department of Cultural Affairs could not achieve savings without jeopardizing their core missions, taking away resources that are so important to every neighborhood and community. So we exempted them from this PEG. That is right. We did not cut a single penny from libraries and cultural institutions in this plan. And after our savings review process, we also adjusted targets for the FDNY, sanitation, parks, youth and community development, the Human Resources Administration, and homelessness service agencies, which is the midst of it dealing with a humanitarian crisis. I want New Yorkers to understand, we did not take savings that could threaten these critical services. We did not cut budgets for the sake of cutting. Our goal is always to streamline operations so that agencies can continue to deliver the same or higher level of services efficiently. The savings accomplished in this budget did not impact services or result in layoffs. And we did not take a dime from our classrooms. Instead of forcing cuts that could hurt New Yorkers, we found other ways to balance the budget so that we can preserve our quality of life and protect the recovery that we have fought so hard for. The PEG was a success, achieving $1.6 billion in savings across the 2 fiscal years and over $3 billion in the out years. This brings total gap reducing savings over the November, January, and April plans to nearly $4.7 billion over fiscal years 23 and 24. Safeguarding our city's recovery and being fiscally responsible includes maintaining budget reserves that shelter us from the unexpected. In the fiscal year 2024 executive budget, we have maintained $8 billion in reserve, which is a near record high level. While we are using a portion of our reserves to cover the asylum seeker crisis, we cannot allow the crisis to drain our reserves. We must remain prepared to respond to future challenges. As I said earlier, this budget invests in working New Yorkers while making sure that New York City keeps working for everyone. It protects and maintains our historic investments in child care, summer youth employment, and affordable housing, while also funding additional programs and services that benefit working families, young people, and those who need extra assistance. We will not forsake New Yorkers from all walks of life who need our help, and we cannot remain a beacon of hope if we turn our backs on people struggling with mental health challenges. We will baseline funding and continue to expand the Be Heard program. Be Heard sends mental health professionals and EMS to nonviolent 911 mental health calls instead of the New York City Police Department, making sure that those in distress receive the health-centered assistance they need. We will also provide telehealth, mental health services for children in shelters because we know that our young people are suffering and still experiencing trauma from the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are honoring the commitments to mental health services that we made in this year's State of the City. This includes telehealth assistance for high school students, increasing the capacity of facilities for peer-led support in high-need areas, and streamlining the process by which people with serious mental illness access services. It's only by assisting those who need our help the most that we can lay the groundwork for a just, equitable, and prosperous city. New York City is built on the hard work and dedication of working families. In these difficult times, we must do what it takes to put resources back into the hands of working people. This includes helping families claim all available benefits, including the Earned Income Tax Credit, cash assistance, SNAP, and more. We are bringing more attorneys on board to make sure that our neighbors who rely on government-funded housing vouchers can utilize them without being discriminated against by landlords. And we are expanding broadband and NYCHA developments so that New Yorkers at every income level can get on the internet. This would allow families to access childcare and other services online through our city's web portals. We're also supporting the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities plan to promote workforce development for New Yorkers living with disabilities. And we are preparing our people for the 21st century jobs by investing in the right education and training. We're integrating climate education into our schools to increase our students' environmental awareness and help get them ready for opportunities in the growing green sector. We are also providing our school food workers with in-depth culinary training to improve their skills and make healthy eating a part of our students' everyday experience. And we are making sure that our students in shelters receive the support they need to be able to continue their education. We will also support our talented and hardworking students at CUNY. Through internships and mentorships, we can connect them with potential employers and create prosperity across all 5 boroughs. However, I know from personal experience that sometimes life puts up obstacles you cannot overcome on your own. So, we're providing CUNY students who are forced to give up their studies with the help they require to resume their education through the CUNY Reconnect program. 16,000 students made use of this program in its first year. For each student who re-enrolls in college, we have one more New Yorker with a better chance of securing a good paying job. One more New Yorker with a shot at a better future. Our shared future is built on the principle of justice and equity. New Yorkers voted to create the Office of Racial Equity and the Commission on Racial Equity, and we are making sure that these important entities will have the resources they need to carry out their mission. Their efforts will help coordinate citywide racial equity planning, establish priorities, and track compliance. Racial equity means a safer, healthier, and stronger city for everyone. And we can't talk about equity without addressing the threat that climate change poses to our city, especially our most vulnerable communities. Plan YC is our city's strategic climate plan to combat climate crisis and do good for the environment. Whether it is expanding organics collection and composting, maintaining our tree cover, bringing solar power to low-income residents, or building shoreline resilience, Plan YC provides a comprehensive citywide strategy to increase resilience, protect our infrastructure, and save lives. And it is rooted in practical, actionable steps that we will get done. We're also using capital funding and long-term strategic planning to reimagine our city. The $164.8 billion 10-year capital strategy is a long-term look at our infrastructure planning and financing. It sets out a vision for bettering our city over generations. We'll expand the Department of Sanitation collection fleet so that we can implement our first citywide curbside organics and composting program. This will improve sustainability across all 5 boroughs. We'll also invest in more than $500 million to redevelop the CUNY Brookdale campus and create a world-class science park and research center. This will generate billions of dollars in economic impact, lead to thousands of good jobs, and confirm New York City's role as a global leader in public health and life sciences. In addition, we're making improvements to schools citywide because of our students deserve the best possible facilities in which to learn and grow. Time and time again, New Yorkers have shown courage and grit in the face of adversity. We're proud of our city's economic recovery, our near record high job numbers, and the rebound in our tourism industry. We're proud that our administration is preparing our young people for the future, supporting working families, creating affordable housing, providing access to good jobs, and improving public safety. New Yorkers know that to thrive in this city, you need to be able to adapt. This administration will continue to respond quickly to changing conditions and adjust course as needed. Our compass will always be our people, and this budget ensures that we can continue to get stuff done for New Yorkers and for our city now and in the years to come. Thank you, New Yorkers.